It was mid-October when my group of friends and I decided to visit our county's most popular haunted house attraction. It was set right on the edge of town, surrounded by dark woods that always carried a cold breeze and a sense of isolation. Every year, the place opened for the Halloween season, and every year, crowds lined up for its three attractions: a haunted house, a corn maze, and a haunted trail through the forest. My friends were Rod, James, and Bud, though that last one was just his nickname. We started with the haunted house, which actually impressed us. The props were realistic, the actors committed, and the scares were timed perfectly. For a local setup, it was surprisingly professional. We laughed off our nerves and decided to take on the corn maze next. At first, it seemed harmless, just endless rows of tall corn and twisting turns that made us lose track of direction within minutes. Then came the first real scare. Out of nowhere, a man dressed as a scarecrow lunged out of the corn, screaming. We yelled and ran in all directions, the adrenaline kicking in hard. I was at the back, and the scarecrow was right behind me. Even knowing he was just an actor, something primal took over. The fear of being chased was too real. Somewhere in the chaos, I lost sight of everyone. My friends had vanished, and I couldn't hear them anymore. The sounds of laughter and running footsteps faded until it was just me, and the rustling of corn stalks around me. My breathing grew heavier, and I realized I wasn't sure where the exit was anymore. Then I heard movement again. Slow, deliberate steps brushing through the corn. Rod? James? I called out, but there was no answer. Just the wind whistling through the maze. I told myself it was another actor, part of the setup, but the longer I stood there, the less it felt like fun. Something was off about the silence. And that's when I saw a hand reach out from the corn and grab my wrist. Hard. The grip was so strong it made me yelp. Stop! You're hurting me, I shouted, thinking the actor had gone too far. But the hand didn't let go. The man tried to pull me into the corn, and I caught a glimpse of his arm, covered in a heavy black coat, his hand in a black glove. I yanked myself free, stumbling backward, my pulse hammering. He stepped out of the corn, silent, wearing a thick winter coat, dark jeans, and a blank black face mask. No logo, no expression, just black. I yelled at him, furious and scared. You actually hurt me. What the hell is wrong with you? But he didn't speak. He started running toward me. Instinct took over. I turned and sprinted through the maze, ignoring the trails, just crashing through the corn until I finally reached the edge and found an employee. I told him what happened, describing the man's outfit and how he'd grabbed me. The worker frowned. We don't have anyone in a black mask costume, he said slowly. But I'll look into it. My stomach sank. How could they not have someone like that? I thanked him and checked my phone. A missed call from James. When I called back, he said they'd tried to find me, but ended up going to the haunted trail instead. I told him I'd meet them there. The haunted trail began at the edge of the forest. Speakers hidden in the trees played eerie sounds, screams, crows, whispers, to set the mood. The path was dimly lit, twisting deeper into the woods. I hurried along, trying to catch up to my friends. But when I turned a corner, I froze. He was standing in the middle of the path, the same man in the black mask. No noise, no introduction. Just that faceless mask staring at me. Then he charged. The grip was so strong it made me yelp. Stop! You're hurting me, I shouted, thinking the actor had gone too far. But the hand didn't let go. The man tried to pull me into the corn, and I caught a glimpse of his arm, covered in a heavy black coat, his hand in a black glove. I yanked myself free, stumbling backward, my pulse hammering. He stepped out of the corn, silent, wearing a thick winter coat, dark jeans, and a blank black face mask. No logo, no expression, just black. I yelled at him, furious and scared. You actually hurt me. What the hell is wrong with you? But he didn't speak. He started running toward me. Instinct took over. I turned and sprinted through the maze, ignoring the trails, just crashing through the corn until I finally reached the edge and found an employee. I told him what happened, describing the man's outfit and how he'd grabbed me. The worker frowned. We don't have anyone in a black mask costume, he said slowly. But I'll look into it. My stomach sank. How could they not have someone like that? I thanked him and checked my phone. A missed call from James. When I called back, he said they'd tried to find me, but ended up going to the haunted trail instead. I told him I'd meet them there. The haunted trail began at the edge of the forest. Speakers hidden in the trees played eerie sounds, screams, crows, whispers, to set the mood. The path was dimly lit, twisting deeper into the woods. I hurried along, trying to catch up to my friends. But when I turned a corner, I froze. He was standing in the middle of the path, the same man in the black mask. No noise, no introduction. Just that faceless mask staring at me. Then he charged. I burst into the small front office, breathless and shaking. The older man behind the counter looked startled. I blurted everything out. How the man had attacked me. How he wasn't supposed to be part of the attraction. How the other workers said no one matched his costume. The man frowned. "We don't have any black mask costumes here," he said. "Wait here." He called the police right away. Within minutes, my friends found me outside, confused and worried. I told them everything. The cops arrived soon after, and I gave them a full statement. They searched the grounds, but didn't find anyone matching the description. There were no cameras in the maze or the woods, and I didn't have bruises to show them, just red marks on my wrist. Still, they took a report and told me to be careful. The attraction shut down early that night. We drove home in silence. No one said a word for the entire ride. The next morning, I saw on social media that the haunted attraction stayed closed for maintenance the following week. They never reopened that season. That was the last haunted house I ever went to. Even now, every October, when the air gets colder and the leaves start to fall, I can still feel that hand grabbing my wrist and wonder if the man in the mask is still out there, waiting in another corn maze, waiting for someone else to get lost. It was the year I turned 13. My best friend invited me and two other buddies to spend Halloween night at his place. His house was a little outside of town, big, slightly old, but perfect for trick-or-treating. We had our costumes, flashlights, and empty bags ready. The streets were filled with laughter, kids in masks, and the orange glow of jack-o'-lanterns flickering on porches. As the night went on, our bags got heavier, and the streets grew quieter. We decided to hit just a few more houses before heading back. That's when we came to her house, the one that didn't have any lights on, but still had a faint porch glow. When we knocked, a tall, thin woman answered the door. She had shoulder-length hair that looked unwashed and dark circles under her eyes. A strong smell of cigarettes and something rotten drifted out from behind her. She forced a smile and said, "Oh, I ran out of candy, but maybe I can find something for you." We exchanged glances. Something about her tone felt off, too eager, too strange. We waited awkwardly while she disappeared inside. When she returned, she held a crumpled brown paper bag filled with old-looking candy, wrappers yellowed and sticky. Politely, we declined. My friend smiled nervously, saying, "That's okay, ma'am. Our ride's coming." But before we could step back, she grabbed his wrist. "No, please," she whispered sharply. He yanked away, and she slammed the door. None of us said anything for a moment. Then, without a word, we took off toward the next house, laughing nervously to shake it off. But something in her eyes, the desperate, hollow look, stuck with me. When we reached the end of the street, I glanced back. Her porch light was off now, but I could have sworn I saw a shadow moving inside the window. We knocked on a few more doors, trying to forget about that creepy encounter. Then, as we neared the parking lot where my friend's mom was waiting, we heard shouting. "They took my child. They took her." A woman's scream cut through the quiet night. When we looked over, our stomachs dropped. It was her. That same woman, the one with the rotten-smelling house. She was pounding on a car with her fists, crying and screaming. The car was my friend's mom's car. "Mom!" he yelled, running ahead. The woman was throwing herself at the car hood, tears streaming down her face. "Give her back!" she screamed. Neighbors rushed out, some in pajamas, trying to calm her. One older man said, "I'm so sorry, kids, she's not well, she's confused." We piled into the car while the neighbors gently pulled her away. My friend's mom drove off fast, glancing in the rearview mirror. None of us spoke for a long while. The only sound was the car tires on the gravel road. Then, out of nowhere, the woman appeared again. She ran into the road, right in front of the car, screaming, "That's my child." My friend's mom slammed on the brakes. Neighbors came running again, dragging her away as she thrashed and cried. When we finally reached the house, everyone was shaken. My friend's mom locked the doors immediately. "She's just sick," she whispered. "Forget about it, okay?" We nodded, but deep down, we all knew we wouldn't forget that face, the wild eyes, the cracked voice, The way she looked right at us, like she knew one of us. Later that night, we stayed up watching scary movies, trying to lighten the mood. Around 2 a.m., as we laughed over popcorn, the hallway light suddenly flicked on. We froze. The light glowed under the bedroom door. We waited for footsteps. Maybe his parents were coming to tell us to go to sleep, but no one came. After a minute, I decided to check. When I peeked out, the hallway was empty. Dead silent. "Dude, it's her," whispered one of my friends. I frowned. "Who?" He pointed toward the large window facing the backyard. My heart dropped. Through the glass, that same woman stood outside, pale face, wild hair, just staring in at us. The second she noticed we'd seen her, she bolted into the dark yard, vanishing into the trees. We locked the doors and windows immediately. Everyone was terrified. "What does she want?" my friend whispered. No one answered. For an hour, we sat in silence, every creak of the house making us flinch. Finally, exhaustion took over, and somehow, we fell asleep. But in my dreams, I saw her again, standing over my bed, whispering something I couldn't understand, reaching out for my hand. When I woke up, my heart was pounding, and the room was cold, too cold. Morning came, but none of us felt rested. My friend's mom was pale and distant, her hands trembling as she made breakfast. She finally said, I didn't sleep much last night." We stayed quiet, afraid to mention what we'd seen. Then she continued, "I woke up in the middle of the night and thought I saw that woman standing over me." Every one of us froze. "She was just standing there," she whispered. I blinked and she was gone. We looked at each other in silent panic. None of us had told her what we saw at the window. So how could she know? Later that morning, we packed up and left early. But as I got into the car, I looked toward the tree line behind the house. There was movement, something white between the branches. A shape, a face, watching us. I didn't tell anyone. I just shut the car door and stared straight ahead. To this day, I sometimes dream of that Halloween night, and every time I do, I wake up feeling like someone is still standing outside my window, watching, waiting. It was Halloween night, and unlike most years, I was home alone. My dad worked nights, my mom was staying with her sister after another argument, and my sister was off at college. That left me, a college student myself, to hand out candy to the endless stream of trick-or-treaters. My dad had even stocked up on bags of Kit Kats, jokingly warning me to make sure they were all gone by the end of the night. I didn't get home from class until around 6. The sun had already vanished, and the street outside glowed orange with porch lights and decorations. The first ring of the doorbell came before I'd even dropped my bag on the couch. That rhythm continued for hours. Ring, footsteps, laughter, candy, repeat. By 9, things had finally calmed down. I was half distracted with homework when the bell rang one last time. I sighed, grabbed the nearly empty candy bowl, and opened the door. Instead of kids in costumes, a man stood there. Maybe in his mid-30s, neatly dressed, but off somehow. His face was calm, his eyes blank. He waved slightly, didn't speak, didn't smile. Something about that silence made my stomach twist. I waited for him to say trick or treat, but he didn't. He just kept staring through the storm door. Then he reached for the handle. I slammed the door shut instantly and locked it. My heart was racing. Through the peephole, I saw him still standing there. No expression, no movement. I texted my family group chat, telling them what happened. My dad's reply was casual. "If he tries again, go out and teach him a lesson." I didn't laugh. I double-checked the locks, pulled the curtains, and decided that was it for Halloween. No more candy. No more doors. For a while, everything was quiet. Then I heard something faint, a voice outside. I turned off the TV, listening carefully. The voice grew louder. Someone was shouting my name. The shouting grew more frantic. I opened my window slightly to listen, but the second I did, I saw him, that same man from before. He was standing in the middle of the yard, looking straight up at me, yelling that he needed help finding his son. "I don't believe you," I muttered to myself and pulled the window shut. His tone wasn't desperate, it was rehearsed. Calm, eerie, like someone mimicking emotion. I texted my family again. My dad wrote, "Ignore him. He'll go away." I wanted to believe that, so I turned off the lights in my room, thinking maybe if he thought I'd gone to sleep, he'd leave. Then I went downstairs to the basement to get some quiet and finish my homework. The basement had no windows, just one narrow staircase leading up. It was dim, isolated, and safe, or at least it felt that way. For almost an hour, it stayed silent. Then, without warning, click, everything went black. The power had gone out. My chest tightened. I knew immediately what had happened. He had messed with the breaker box outside. I grabbed my phone flashlight and texted my parents again, telling them what I thought had happened. My mom panicked, sending, "Stay put. We're calling the cops." That was when I heard it, creaking. Slow, heavy footsteps directly above me. The kind of sound floorboards make when someone's moving carefully, trying not to be noticed. I froze where I stood. He was inside the house. Every sound, every shift in weight, echoed through the basement ceiling. I crouched down beside the water heater, holding my breath. My phone buzzed in my hand, and I almost dropped it. A message from my mom again. "Police are coming. Stay quiet." The footsteps stopped. Then the basement door opened. The door creaked open, each sound slicing through the darkness. A faint glow from the upstairs hall spilled down the steps, just enough for me to see his shadow. He descended slowly, one step, then another, until he stopped halfway. I could see his legs, the faint outline of dark pants, his shoes pointing directly at me. And then he whispered something. It wasn't clear at first, just a mumble. But as I strained to listen, I caught bits of words, scattered, broken sentences. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My phone screen glowed faintly in my hand. Then he said it. "I can see you." His voice was low, almost curious. Not angry, just knowing. I felt every hair on my neck rise. He was facing me, staring at me. I didn't move a muscle. Neither did he. The silence dragged on for what felt like an eternity. I could hear the faintest sound of his breathing. And then, bang. A loud knock echoed through the front door upstairs. He turned his head slightly, then began to back away, one slow step at a time. The door shut. Footsteps moved above me again. Then silence. I stayed frozen for another 20 seconds before bolting up the stairs. The front door was opened slightly, and the cold October air rushed in. The police lights flashed outside the window. They were already there. When I told them what happened, they searched the house, but he was gone. The officers stayed for a while, taking notes, checking every door and window. One of them asked if I had seen the man's face clearly. I said no, only his legs, his shadow, his voice. They couldn't find any signs of forced entry. The back door was unlocked. That's how he'd gotten in. Outside, they confirmed the breaker box had been tampered with. The officer told me, "You were lucky you didn't confront him. Whoever that was, he knew what he was doing." My dad came home early that night. We sat in the kitchen until sunrise, neither of us saying much. Every creak, every gust of wind outside made us tense. My mom didn't stop calling until morning. A few days later, police followed up but said they never found anyone matching my description. No arrests. No clues. Just nothing. I've tried to move on since then. But every Halloween, when the trick-or-treaters start coming, I can't help but look out the window, half expecting to see that same man standing there again, watching the house. The one thing I'll never forget is the sound of his voice echoing from the darkness of the basement. "I can see you." It was Halloween night, a Saturday, about 4 years ago. My friend Tanner and I wanted to do something actually scary. Not some college party or movie marathon. Something that would make our hearts race for real. So, we decided to visit the abandoned house on the hill just outside campus. Everyone on campus called it the Blair Witch House. The name alone was enough to make people avoid it. It sat at the top of a dead-end dirt road, surrounded by trees and an eerie silence that seemed to swallow sound itself. Nobody knew who owned it, and nobody had gone inside for years. At around 10 o'clock, Tanner drove us up the long, winding road. The further we went, the fewer lights there were. Finally, we parked outside the rusted front gate, the house barely visible through the fog and darkness. "Still sure about this?" Tanner asked, half grinning but clearly nervous. I nodded, though my stomach was already twisting. We grabbed our backpacks, flashlights, a crowbar, and a couple of pocket knives, just in case. When we reached the porch, the boards creaked beneath our feet. Tanner pushed the door gently with the crowbar, but it didn't need it. It swung open with a long, hollow groan. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of rot and mildew. Our flashlight beams cut through the blackness, revealing broken furniture and peeling wallpaper. The entire place looked gutted, like someone had stripped it of anything valuable long ago. We moved from room to room, whispering even though we didn't know why we were keeping our voices low. Maybe it was instinct, like the house itself was listening. Then we heard it. A deep, heavy thump from upstairs. Tanner froze mid-step. "What the hell was that?" he whispered. "Probably an animal," I said, though I didn't believe it for a second. We looked at each other, adrenaline kicking in. And then, without another word, Tanner raised his flashlight toward the staircase. "We're checking it out," he said. And like idiots, we went upstairs. The stairs creaked and shifted beneath our feet, every step sounding louder than the last. The smell got worse as we climbed, mold, dust, and something faintly metallic. At the top, the hallway stretched ahead, narrow and dark. 3 doors, all slightly open, waited like mouths ready to swallow us whole. The first room on the left was small. A single collapsed bed frame lay rusted against one wall. Tanner moved his flashlight slowly across it, dust floating in the beam like ash. "Nothing," he said. We moved to the next door. The bathroom. Empty. A broken mirror. The porcelain sink cracked down the middle. No sound except the faint hum of wind pushing through the window cracks. Then came the last door, the one at the end of the hall. "This must be the master bedroom," Tanner whispered. He pushed the door open, and we stepped inside. The room was huge compared to the others. There was a massive bed frame still in the center, wood warped and half-rotted. The carpet had been ripped away, leaving only splinters and stains on the floorboards. We scanned every corner, trying to find whatever made that thump. Nothing moved. But then, slam. The bedroom door shut violently behind us. Tanner jumped, spinning around, flashlight shaking in his hand. "You shut that?" "No," I shouted back. Before we could even process what was happening, a sudden white flash filled the room, bright, blinding. Then another. It looked exactly like a camera flash. "What the?" Tanner started, but then we heard breathing. Slow, deep breathing coming from behind the bed. He yanked the door open, and we bolted down the stairs without a word. We didn't stop running until we were back at the car. Tanner threw himself behind the wheel and gunned it down the hill. My hands were trembling so bad, I dropped my flashlight somewhere along the way. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, Tanner said, "You saw the flashes too, right?" "Yeah," I whispered. "And the breathing." We didn't go back to that house, or even mention it, for days. Then, about a week later, Tanner texted me. "You need to see this." Attached was a photo. It was a picture of the two of us standing in that exact same master bedroom. I called him immediately. "Where did you get that?" He said someone had left it under his car's windshield wiper overnight. The picture was old, printed on glossy paper, like something from the early 2000s. "You think someone followed us back?" I asked. "I don't know," he said, voice shaking. "But this means someone was in that room with us, taking pictures." The thought made my stomach drop. That white flash. That noise. That wasn't just a camera. It was someone right there. Tanner wanted to go to the police. But what would we even say? Some ghost took a picture of us. We'd sound insane. He kept the photo, though. Said he wanted proof of what happened. Then, 2 nights later, he sent another text. "They're back." He found 3 more photographs under his windshield wiper that morning. Each one was of him, asleep in his dorm room. That was it. We packed up his stuff and helped him move to a new dorm building across campus. He threw the photos in a dumpster. I didn't sleep for days, constantly checking my window for flashes of light. We told a few close friends, but most laughed it off. I wish they didn't. Because about a month later, as I was leaving class one night, I saw Tanner's car parked outside a different dorm. Under the wiper, barely visible under the streetlight, was another photograph of both of us standing on that hill, right before we entered the house. And I swear, it hadn't been there when we took that picture.